This next video was crazy to me. When I heard this, I was absolutely shocked. If this is how bad it's getting, we need to do something quick.
I keep seeing these videos about people aren't getting paid enough to afford rent, and I just have one thing to say. It makes no sense that the wage to rent ratio does not match. And I live in Florida. Florida is very expensive. The rent here is insane. Like, I live in a 4x4 apartment, and each of us pay over $1,000. Like, that's ridiculous. That is $4,000. I do not understand how people are affording to live right now. The rent is through the roof. Like, they raised mine $300. I already pay $1,000 to live with 3 rugrats, 3 strangers that I don't know.
I really love how every single month before the first, I will get a notification from App Portfolio saying, your rent is due in 2 days, blah, blah. I didn't forget, okay? I didn't forget. How could I forget the economy that we're in, the housing crisis that we're in? How could I forget that my rent is due in a couple days? I didn't forget, okay? You'll get your money. You'll get your money on the 1st. You don't need to bother me on the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th because you will get your money on the 1st.
I just got our rent renewal thing for our apartment complex, and it's going up by $300 a month. $300 for a 1-bedroom apartment that is not updated in any sort of way. We already pay, with all the fees and everything included, $2,000 a month, and now we're going to be paying $2,300 a month for this tiny apartment. And that's just so frustrating. I don't understand how people can live in this world anymore.
So was it really that bad? According to Google, rents have increased nationwide, but the rate of increase obviously varies by region. So national trends from March 2019 to March 2024, the median rent in the US increased from $1,632 to $1,987. For regional trends, you may not be surprised. New York City rents increased 3.6% in 2024, which seems kind of low. Sunbelt cities rents declined due to an oversupply of new apartments. In the Midwest and Northeast, rents increased due to higher demand and limited supply. Rents have risen faster than wages in most US cities. In New York City, rents rose more than 7 times faster than wages.
So this is not to be pessimistic, I'm just a realist. But do not feel bad for doing what you have to do in this economy. I've been seeing people post about how they had to give up their new car or how they had to go back to a 9-to-5 after doing entrepreneurship, move back in with their parents. And I know that it sucks. I just wanted to stress to you that it's not your fault. It's really the economy. As a millennial who lived through pre-pandemic and then now, it was totally different. Yes, I was able to pay off my car, but my car note was $300 a month. It was only $16,000 for a brand new car at that time. You can't find a brand new car for that price anywhere. Another thing too, when I was paying rent, it was $800 back in 2017, 2018. And that was for a 3-bedroom. That same apartment right now is $1,400 a month for a 1-bedroom. House prices, I could literally write an essay. I could write a book. The interest rates, of course, were way lower, but the house prices were not crazy. I bought my house for $165,000. The houses in my neighborhood right now are going for almost $300K, which is crazy. I say all that to say you can't take accountability for things that are just simply not your fault. Jobs are not paying that much. The economy is going up. Eggs are $31. So when it comes to doing what you have to do to survive in this economy, do not feel bad. It's just a sacrifice.
Things have increased in price drastically in the last few years, 4 or 5 years since the pandemic. Rent prices have gone up. Food prices have gone up. Car insurance has gone up. House insurance has gone up. The price of everything almost has gone up. She is not wrong about that. I don't know where she lives at, but $165,000 for a house, that's pretty good. I mean, back in 2019, I purchased a home for about $60,000 myself. This is in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic area. Since that time in 2019, I think the house is now going for somewhere around 300-ish thousand. So right along what she was saying. And by the way, I lived in the house for a while. I rented out the rooms and lived in it with roommates. And now I rent it out to one person. Now, if I was to buy that same exact house and try to rent it out for what I rented out for now, I would not cash flow at all. She also mentioned that she was paying $700 a month for rent. I think she said back in 2019 as well. And now that same apartment goes for $1,400, double the price. I mean, if that's not clear inflation for you, I don't know what is. Now, this next video was crazy to me. When I heard this, I was absolutely shocked. If this is how bad it's getting, we need to do something quick.
Have you heard of hotbedding? Aussie uni students are sharing beds with strangers because they cannot afford to rent a room on their own. Yes, the rental crisis has literally come down to this. People are splitting the rent of a bedroom with strangers, literal strangers, to use a bed that is only available for certain hours. When one person is not in the bed, somebody else can use it. It may make your skin itch, but this is the reality for thousands of students in Australia. A 19-year-old international student in Melbourne shares her bed with a man who works nights as a truck driver. She sleeps there at night when he is working, and during the day when she is out of the house, the room is his. Together they split the $550 monthly rent for a room in a share house, and there are fears more people could find themselves in this position due to the student working cap.
Wow, I mean, that's crazy to me. So listen, I'm a landlord. I own a home that I rent to college students, and I rent it by the room. So it's a shared house or a rooming house or room split, pad split, whatever you want to call it. And this is pretty common. So a couple students get together. A lot of times they're friends, and they'll rent one house and they'll rent it by the room. That makes it cheaper for all of them. Maybe they pay $500 each, $600 each, whatever. This is talking about how people are sharing beds. They're not doing room splits. They're doing bed splits. They're sharing beds. So in the night, a truck driver goes to work and the student sleeps in the bed. Then in the morning when he's back, she goes to class and he sleeps in the bed. I mean, that is out. That just blows my mind. Now, this is in Australia, but I mean, I don't know if this is happening in the US or not, but this is just, it's crazy to me. Personally, I don't think I could do this. And I'm not a bougie guy. I've rented rooms before. I've stayed with roommates. I've stayed in hostels. This to me is just a whole nother level. Let's check out some of the comments on this. I'm curious. So someone reads, "This is a form of homelessness. It is insecure housing, like couch surfing." Someone writes, "We are evolving backwards. Literally, this method was used during the Industrial Revolution." Wow. I'm not sure if that's true or not. This person writes, "A bed, question mark, a bed, question mark, question mark. I would just sleep on a blow up mattress on the floor at that point." I tend to agree. This is funny. Someone says bunk beds is a thing, by the way. Now that's pretty funny. I mean, I get that. Yeah. Why sleep in the same bed? Just put up a bunk bed. That's a good point. Okay. Another comment, something similar says, "Okay, if you're going to share a room with someone, at least put two singles, not a shared double," crying emoji face. So I guess people are kind of grossed out at the fact you're sharing the actual bed with another person, a stranger or a random person or a non-family member or a non-significant other. And I think that's the really gross thing about it. I mean, it's one thing to share a room. I get it. But to share the bed, I mean, there are ways to get around that. So I'm with that too. And so another person writes, $550 a month is like $140 a week. So they can only afford to pay $70 a week, question mark, question mark, question mark. How do weekends work? This doesn't make sense. Okay, I like this because essentially he's saying get it together. I mean, we've all been broke college students before, or at least a lot of us have. And I know things are tough right now, but I mean, Uber, sell clothes online, walk dogs, babysit cats. I mean, figure out a way to do it. Because he's right, $140 a week. I mean, you can make that happen without having to, split bed bugs with strangers. Okay, so here's a video about a woman comparing rents versus mortgage, the age-old comparison. So let's get into it.
Yep, a lot of people are house poor. And a lot of them are not discussing it. And maybe they're not discussing it because the alternative is to be rent poor. And they would prefer to be house poor before they become rent poor. Because there's a lot of people who are renting and they are struggling to save. And at the end of their lease, they have no equity or anything to pull for. And before you know it, you're in this cycle where you've been renting for 5 years and 10 years. In 20 years, and you're still rent poor. So we have to start thinking about the alternative, right? What is the alternative? I don't have all the answers. I don't think everybody should own. I don't think everybody should rent, but we need to start discussing what exactly is the alternative.
She says that a lot of people rent and they can't afford to put money away to buy. If that's the case, then most likely you're not earning enough money to buy anyways. You can't afford a mortgage because typically a mortgage is going to be a little bit more expensive than rent. So you're not going to have the money to pay for the mortgage in the first place. Now, what she's saying is, at least if you have a mortgage and you buy, that when you 5, 10, 15 years down the line, you're going to have equity built in your home. but I'm going to counter that with a little bit of data. So just stay with me here and follow along. Okay, guys. So to demonstrate why renting oftentimes is a better option than buying a home, and to provide a counter argument for what this woman was saying about equity, I pulled up a mortgage calculator here by NerdWallet, and I'm going to plug in some numbers so that we can have a visual of why sometimes it's better to rent. So what I did, since everyone watching is from different locations around the country, I decided to choose Florida as the case study example because Florida has been popular lately. A lot of people have been moving to Florida, so I thought it'd be a good state to use for this example. So I'm using a median home price of $400,000. I plugged in a 20% down payment. Now, honestly, most people are not putting down 20%, more so 5%. 10%, sometimes 3.5% if they're getting an FHA loan, but really we should be putting down 20% if possible. So for this example, I put down 20%, which of course is $80,000 of $400,000. Interest rate was automatically put there by NerdWallet, 6.681%. I'm assuming this is based off of pretty good credit. Start date is November 2024, which is the month that I'm recording this video. I've also plugged in some advanced information here, and I got this off a line. Property taxes of $2,500, just so you know how I got that number. I went to Business Insider and pulled up a personal finance table. According to Business Insider, the median property tax in 2023 for Florida was $2,529. And as you can see here, the median price was $413,820. So very close to that $400,000 number that I'm using. And this is where I got that $2,500 a month tax rate from. As you see here, I plugged in $219 for the homeowner's insurance, and I can show you where I got that number from. So according to a quick Google search, the average cost of home insurance in Florida is around $219 per month. So that's where that number came from that I plugged in NerdWallet's calculator. And then lastly, as you can see, monthly HOA fees, I plugged in $225. Again, did a quick Google search. In Florida, the average monthly homeowners association fee ranges from $100 to $350. So just adding those two together, $350 plus $100, and then you divide that by 2 to get the average, $225, and that's where that number came from. So that's where all this information is from. Let's take a look at the table. So the total estimated amount you're going to be paying per month for your mortgage is $2,512.44. Total principal you put down was $320. Total interest payments are going to be $421,000. Now, if you notice, the total interest payments that you're making is greater than the amount that you bought the house for. Now, I take that back. You bought the house for $400. You put down $80,000. So you end up paying $421,000, pretty much $422,000, and the home price you purchased was $400. What does that mean? You paid more than 100% of the home price. So when people talk about equity, they forget to take that into account. It's not just you pay down that initial $400,000 and you're building equity that way. No, you're paying a lot of interest. Now, as you can see, the payoff date is November of 2054, which makes sense. It's a 30-year mortgage, a 30-year term. Now, if you want to figure out when you're going to break even on this mortgage, meaning that the amount you pay each month equally goes towards your principal pay down and your interest to the bank, let's take a look how long that takes. So June of 2044 is where your principal pretty much equals out to your interest payments, just about. So if you've paid attention, 2044 is 20 years from now. Well, about 19 and a half years from now. So people say, oh, it's better to buy than rent. When really the first, 20 years of your mortgage, most of your payment is going towards interest because the bank wants to get their money first. Just keep that in mind. And then after that, you start to see it flips and you start to pay more towards your principal than your interest, but you're still paying a lot of interest. So really quickly, going back to this number here, this $2,512.44 number, that's your total monthly payment. If you compare that to renting, the average rent for a 3-bedroom apartment in Florida is around $2,441 per month. So that's $2,441 versus $2,512. So it's very close for what you'd be paying in rent versus your mortgage, according to this example. So people would like to say, okay, well, that's essentially the same. I might as well buy and not quote unquote throw money away and just give money to my landlord. But what they're forgetting to take into account is, again, all the interest that they're going to be paying, not to mention the maintenance that they're going to pay for the home, not to mention the updates that they're going to make, because most people get a new home and they want to make updates to it, whether it's right away or whether it's over time. Anything that breaks in a home, you're going to have to take care of that, not the landlord. You're going to have higher insurance because renter's insurance is much less than homeowner's insurance. You're going to have most of the time an HOA, because most homes now, especially new builds, are being built in HOAs. You have to deal with taxes, which increase. Depends on where you live at, but typically it's every 3 years your home value is reassessed. And the way home prices are going now, the more your home continues to rise, the more you're paying in property taxes. Not to mention you don't have the flexibility to move like you do when you rent. So you're quote unquote stuck in that house. And typically the rule of thumb is that you want to be in the house for at least 10 years before you move. So that way, if you sell it, you can at least recoup your selling cost. But now with home prices and interest rates being so high, it may be even longer than that. So with that being said, before you say, oh, let me go out and buy because it makes more sense than renting, make sure you do the math on it to make sure that really is true, and then make your decision based upon that. All right, guys, if you made it this far, I really thank you. I appreciate it so much. If you feel like you got some kind of value from the video, whether it be entertainment, whether it be education, whether it be edutainment, please feel free to give it a like. And if you feel so inclined to, subscribe. And until the next time, make smart money decisions.